Hello, and thanks for coming along to And We Have an Office Dog, the digital agency podcast where we talk to agency owner-directors and learn more about what makes them tick. From the things that make them similar to the things they'd rather have known sooner, where they've had success and where they've learned some hard lessons. All will be revealed with your host, Chris Simmons, the agency coach, and he'll be talking to a different awesome agency person in each episode, asking them 4 questions and seeing where the conversation takes us over the next 25 minutes. Okay, so let us begin. Over to you, Chris.
Thanks, voiceover guy. And on the podcast today, we've got Anita from Pace Communications. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome on the podcast. This is the
great
second
to be
or third
with you.
time. The second or third time we've tried, isn't it? Dog-related
Busy.
injuries.
Yeah, busy diaries and dogs to look after.
Exactly. And you were just saying that the only day that you booked the podcast on, your dog's not in the office, which is a shame, but hey.
Yeah, very ironic, but she's actually at home today, which is highly unusual, but yeah, she's not in the office today.
So, Anita, you're the founder of Pace Communications. First things first, give us a plug. What does the agency do? What are you famous for?
Well, we describe ourselves as a creative communications agency, which I know is not a unique term, but we steer away from describing ourselves as a digital agency. So we're a creative comms agency. And what do? We, I suppose, in simple terms, create what we believe is brilliant content and campaigns that will get our clients noticed, engage their audience at the right place and the right time, and ultimately create demand for their products and services.
And you have just celebrated a relatively large milestone birthday.
We have. So we are recording this in October, and last month in September we celebrated our 7th birthday. So we have 7 years old. Thank you very much.
7 years. You've got the agency's 7-year itch. You're going to start a second one now, run in tandem.
Yeah, I have been asked that question. We will see. It is exciting though, because actually we have just extended the agency even further, because we've just joined forces with a smaller agency. They've come under the Pace umbrella, just a local agency that was a team of 5, so that they've now joined us. So we are now a team of 27.
Wow, that's amazing. So 27 in 7 years, and 5 of those have been essentially an M&A process, which is quite exciting to go
just
through.
Last month actually.
Yeah.
So September was a busy month with one thing and another.
And how have you and they found the kind of the merging of cultures and things like that, or was it quite aligned in the first place?
It was actually very aligned. So Jess, who was the founder of the smaller agency, she was looking at different options for her and her team, and she approached us, and she was very open in the sense that we were the only agency she was interested in joining because of our culture, and that was the thing that appealed to her. She felt there was a direct alignment with how we do our work and how we behave as an agency. And I agreed with her wholeheartedly. When we looked at it, coming together, it just made perfect sense. And they've only been with us maybe, I want to say 3 or 4 weeks, not even 4 weeks. It's about 3 weeks. And it feels like they've been with us so long. They've just slotted in so well. And there's been no issues. They just feel like part of the family. So it was the right decision. And it was a very quick thing as well, which I think just reinforced the fact it was the right thing to do. The initial conversation through to the completion of the deal just took a matter of weeks.
That's brilliant. I mean, that's what you want. That's what you want in any kind of merger, any kind of acquisition. The nice and swift is usually nice. Obviously, mind the I's and mind the T's, but yeah. So over the last few years, what do you think's been one of the biggest successes that you've seen as an agency owner?
For us here at Pace, or just generally in the sector? I think, we just talked about culture, but culture's been really important to me from day one, and I've been very keen ever since we opened the doors at Pace to recruit the right people. And there's been times when we perhaps have realised that for whatever reason the people we've recruited outright were either not the right fit for them or vice versa. So I think in those situations it's quick to address that, because being the right fit and the right type of person, and to fit into the team and complement what we already have in the team is critical to the continued success of the agency. So I think having the right people and continuing to build a creative culture is really important. And when I describe our culture, I talk about it as being an environment where people can work to their, natural best and feel fulfilled, where they can trust each other, work together as one team. And I know it's a bit of a cliche, but like a family, because I fundamentally believe if we've got a happy team, we're doing brilliant work, and then we're delighting our clients.
And the thing is, if it's there's lots of cultures where they say those same things, but they only mean them on paper. So it sounds like you actually live that culture and those values, which is a very different thing to having a big vinyl sign on the wall that says those things.
Absolutely. And it's also, I mean, this isn't unique to us. I think all agencies have a similar culture in the sense that we try to have fun as well. So there's a big social side to agency life, which I think has to be part of the package, because agency life is quite demanding. It's very challenging. We're all up against deadlines. So we have to balance that with remembering to have a good time and celebrate the highs. There's a lot of lows in agency life. You win some, lose some. So it's important to take time out to celebrate the wins as well.
Absolutely agree. And I think living by your values and your culture it's a great way to bring new staff in as well, especially these days when it's all the more expensive to find new staff. Having a culture which your team help do your own recruiting because they're very happy.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? We do most of our recruitment. We don't ever use recruitment agencies. We do it through our own social channels, because we've been very conscious to illustrate our culture through our own social channels. So we get people contacting us proactively, asking, do you have any opportunities, or can you keep me in mind if you do have opportunities, because they've seen what it's like to work at pace through our social channels. So I think that's important as well.
So if you could go back in time to just as you started building the agency and give yourself like one piece of advice, what might that
just one
advice
piece
be?
of advice?
Yeah. You've accumulated a lot over the years, that's for sure.
Yeah. I think agency life can be quite cruel, as like I said before, you're celebrating the wins, and obviously there's quite a lot of lows as well, and there is a lot of rejection involved in agency life. And I've come from a corporate background. I worked in corporate, in-house for over 20 odd years. So I think when I first started working the other side of the table, so I used to see agencies, I was the client, and then I became obviously the agency, so sitting on the other side of the table. And I think the first time we were unsuccessful in a pitch, I took it very, very personally, and that rejection was really hard to deal with, having not been through it before. So I think, if you're starting an agency, then you have to accept that you are going to be disappointed, but not to dwell on it and not take it personally. It's maybe just purely down to a timing thing, rather than the quality of the work.
There's quite a lot of factors involved, especially when it comes to that part of pitching. But you get rejection once you've got the client sometimes, because you lose them once in a while.
Absolutely,
and often that can hurt more because you've built relationships and all sorts of things like that. But do you think that if you went back in time, if it was possible, and you gave yourself that advice, would the just starting out founder of Pace Communications have listened to the advice?
I don't know, because I'm I'm quite a competitive person, but by nature. So I think I don't like losing, and I take losing a pitch quite far. I think I'm just a bit more I don't know, relaxed is the wrong word, but I think what I have learned is that any feeling I have is totally my choice. So if I choose a different way of dealing with a situation, it's not just about pitching, it's about anything in life. If I choose a different feeling, then or a different thought, how I deal with a situation, then that results in a different feeling. So it's up to me. It's totally my choice how I want to feel about something. And I think I've learnt that you can dwell on things and make a big deal out of it, or you can accept what it is and move on. And I know it's easier said than done, but I think that's come with experience over the last 7 years.
I think you're right, and I think over the course of time running an agency, you learn how to deal with, like you say, rejection. But you also, it's the most expensive MBA you'll ever have, and you certainly learn to be a bit stoic about things.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, sorry, just compared to my corporate life, which was very predictable and I won't say boring, but very steady. agency life is a bit of a roller coaster, but in the same, because of that, it's exciting.
Oh yeah, the highs feel even more high than they would do if they were just consistent. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And do you think over the years, do you think there's one thing that you kind of either regret happening that you learned from quickly, or is there something that you did really well as an agency and that's kind of something you stuck to? So a success that kind of rolled into like the future.
One thing, the success. I mean, I know I've talked about it already, but the culture is really important to me, and I think, I've been very steadfast in my approach to the whole working from home debate and hybrid working. So I opened it out to the team. So obviously, like everybody else in the proper lockdown, that initial lockdown period, we worked from home as most people did. But I think I think it was about the first 3 months we started coming back to work into the office, and we've been in the office since then. And it's really important for us to be in the office because we know we work better together. We are a company. There's a clue in the name. Otherwise, we'd just be 27 freelancers all working at home. While I'm recording this with you, in the meeting room next door, there's over 20 odd people collaborating and doing ideations for clients. Now, you can't do. I don't care what people say. You cannot do that from behind a screen in your living room, bedroom. And I opened it out to the team and said, how do you feel about working in the office? And it was unanimous. People wanted to come into the office because they enjoyed being with each other and bouncing ideas off each other. And you lose, I don't care what people say, you lose that culture if you are not all together.
I believe you. I think there's varying different versions of the work from home piece, as well as the hybrid and all that sort of stuff. And it does very much fit. Different agencies seem to have very different approaches to it based on how they work and the culture of the business. And I do think that when you're working on an ideas-based business from a creative point of view, it's very hard to be creative, like you say, from the side of a screen, because you're in an empty room all by yourself whilst talking to 10 boxes.
Yeah, and you miss those those little conversations that happen once you end the Teams call. The conversation in the office is still carrying on, but you're not part of that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think, from a career development point of view as well, you need to be present. You need to have visibility in the office so people and you can see the contribution you're making, which again is hard. Now, I'm not saying that everyone exclusively works in the office every day. People have the option to work from home one day a week if they want to, but I would say the vast majority of 20 odd people are all in the office every day because they choose to be.
Yeah, and if it's a choice, then and people do it, then they've done it right. You've done it right. There's something there that makes that the case. In other agencies, they may have downsized the office or something like that, and then they rotate and they try and do it that way. Other agencies are strictly 100% remote, and they're starting, I think, based on conversations I'm having, some of which are, this is still great, everyone loves it, but we need another 5 staff because we lost 5 staff, or I think we're running out of steam working from home, and we need to start looking for office space, which is really interesting. It's a lot of pivoting.
Yeah, I think you have to be exceptionally motivated to work from home every day, and that the isolation. I know people have calls, Teams calls, etc., Zoom calls, but it's not the same as bouncing off each other in an office.
Yeah. No, I tend to agree. I mean, I work mostly on my own most days with other agency leaders, and I always prefer to go, even if it's a train or a plane trip, to sit in front of them physically with them if I can, because it's not just necessarily the presence physically or seeing someone through a screen. It's the little nuances of body language that you pick up on when you're with people that you just don't get. You can't see that properly through a screen. So I think being present is absolutely essential.
I'm convinced, though. I joke about it in the office. I'm convinced, with obviously the energy prices and everything, everyone's going to go back to the office in the winter anyway because they don't want to pay to have their heating on at home. So everyone's going to be back.
I mean, there's one good side of it, then, isn't there? So if there's someone who's been listening to this podcast now and they're thinking of starting an agency, or they've just started an agency for themselves and they've got a mountain of stuff to look at doing, and they want to listen to this podcast and work out what Anita's piece of advice would be, what one thing, and it has to be just one thing would you pick that is the that person would come up to you and say, "Hey, Anita, I need one piece of advice from you. Give it to me now, quick, hurry."
So many. I think, and again, it's easy for me to say, but I've trained myself to do this, is to focus on the things that you can control and not get distracted by what other people are doing. And I think when you start an agency, it's very easy to look at what the competitors are doing, especially in your locality. And you could panic and think, oh my God, we're not doing that, we should do that, and we're not doing that. And you get distracted. I think just keep that focus and just focus on what you can control, and not get distracted by what others are doing.
And how easy did you find that when you started, out of interest?
Oh, not easy at all. You know, I was, like I said, I was in-house. I'd seen lots of agencies. I felt there was an opportunity to do it differently and do it better. I had all these ideas about what I wanted to do. And then I'd noticed agency X had won a client, or agency B was offering another service. And then I think, oh, we maybe should be doing that, or, you know, we should go after, you know, that sector, or whatever it might be. And I got, you know, it's very easy to derail yourself off your plan. I'm not suggesting you shouldn't keep an eye on what's happening in the market, but just because then you can start, if you do get distracted, you start to dwell on what other people are doing, and you're not focusing on what you need to be doing. And you can only control what's within your gift, which is what you're doing. So the rest of it is a waste of energy and a waste of time. So
and you're never going to get that energy back.
No, absolutely. And you've only got so many hours in a day, and we are all exceptionally busy. I mean, our agency works in media, obviously. It's 24/7. It's constant, it's relentless. So you're busy enough without having the distractions of worrying what other people are doing, or what other people think of you as well. That falls into the same advice, really. Don't worry what other people think of you, because at the end of the day, it's, again, something you can't control.
Absolutely. And I think quite every agency leader I speak to have similar kind of opinions to you in that sense, but they also all still watch what's going on and listen to each other and things like that.
Yeah.
And you can't help it, because it's, you know, the grass is greener, or looking over the fence style kind of thing. But one thing I've learned recently, having launched the OMG Centre, is that community is something really, really important to agency leaders, in that there's enough that you can share or learn from each other without stealing ideas or risking kind of IP and things like that. And sometimes that shared conversation around the same kind of challenge or whatever, you know, someone may ask, have you had I'm having this trouble with a member of my staff. You can empathize, and you can, you know, offer advice as part, and you're not losing anything through that, and they're not losing anything from it, but as a, you know, it takes a village to grow an agency.
Yeah, it does. And I think the more confident you are in what you're doing, the less you are distracted by what others are doing. And
agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
That would be my bit of advice.
And it is great advice. Focus on what you're good at. Focus on what you're doing with your people and for your clients, but keep an eye on them, because they might have a good idea once in a while.
Yeah.
So that's great advice to end the podcast on. So thank you very much for coming along, Anita.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it.
And in our next podcast, we'll be talking to a different agency leader to hear the lessons they've learned, and find out what happened to them along the way. Thanks for listening.